From the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased to have with me today on the show, Corrie. She has a great story to tell us. Corrie, what I like to do usually is I like the guests to introduce themselves, to tell us about what they do. And, I leave the stage to you.
Sure. So would you like to hear the journey of how I came to doing what I do today, or just the very simple, this is what I do today?
So we'll start with the intro. Yeah, we'll start with the intro, then we will come back to the journey.
Okay, got it. So my name is Corrie LoGiudice. I'm a professional keynote speaker. I'm a coach, consultant. I also work as a fractional CMO/COO. And I've been doing this about 5 years now. And my specialty in business is low and no cost marketing, as well as working with aspiring entrepreneurs and, small to mid-sized businesses.
That's great. Now I would like to hear the story. But one thing I want to mention, and the reason why I wanted to make it into a question, because, I know you have, long experience, I would say. So if you can go over this journey and highlighting, the main, I would say, key steps that took you, to the place where you were before to where you have reached now.
Sure. It's actually a pretty wild journey. So let's say it all starts off with, I have a very expensive piece of paper that says I could draw well. So I actually went to art school. Most people don't know this about me. They assume I have a business degree. Nope, could not be further than the truth. So I graduated college with an art degree. I could not get a job. So I was doing the cliche waiting tables thing, which really annoyed my father. Now, my father at the time was the second generation running my family's business. So my family owns a large electronics distribution company in the northeastern United States, covers all the way from Virginia through Maine. So large operation. And he said, you know what, why don't you come work for us for a bit? You could do graphic design, and kind of see where things take you from there. So I take the job thinking it's going to be a, short-term thing. Blink my eyes. And 15 years later, I'm running it as senior vice president. Never anticipated it. I just really kind of took to business. Again, I'm now, the fourth generation entrepreneur on my side of the business. So it's just kind of in our blood. But I really loved learning everything that I could from my father and working my way up from graphic design. Then I built out a marketing department. Then I was assigned operations. Then sales eventually at some point ended up reporting to me. And I absolutely loved the work that I did. And I love the people that I worked with, but in a way, I always kind of felt that and something was off. I kind of felt like unfulfilled. And what kind of changed things for me at that time was I suddenly became a single mom. I fled an abusive relationship. People never knew this about me because I was this, strong senior vice president, always showing up to work. But what was going on behind the scenes was awful. I was in an abusive marriage. I left when my son was 5 months old. I ended up homeless for a little bit. I had to move in with my parents and I was doing this commuting back and forth. It was over 2 hours each way. So I was commuting over 20 hours a week to get to this position. And I tried really hard to get, remote work and, things to make it easier for me to do my job, which even though it was my family's company, it was difficult for them to do it because it was before the pandemic and people just weren't doing that kind of stuff. And so I kicked and scratched and did what I had to do. And ultimately ended up being able to save enough to buy a house, and I moved into a great neighborhood and I got into a new relationship. My partner and I were going to get married. Our kids were best friends. And all at the same time, while this is going on, I'm still feeling like something's missing. I'm still feeling like this isn't what I'm meant to be doing, but I still keep kind of showing up and, doing what I'm doing. And what changed for me was I was the one to discover that he took his life by suicide. And in that moment, I thought to myself, Corrie, you and everyone you know and love can be gone in an instant. You're like, what are you doing with your life? So it
Mhm.
was literally within a span of, I want to say 6 months that I stepped down from my role, in the family business. I went to business for myself because of my over 15 years of experience and working with small mom and pop retail through wholesale distribution. I was very good at that. I was very good at helping small businesses compete against Fortune 200 brands that they were actually representing, which is kind of ironic. But with that said, I was able to land paying clients very, very quickly in my business coaching practice. Within a couple of months, I was in the press. I had over 40,000 followers on social media, again, due to my digital marketing background and everything I had done. And within a year, I was a TEDx speaker. And it all
Wow.
happened really, really quickly. And it's now something that I work with my coaching clients on, how exactly do you go from that feeling of overwhelmed and not knowing where to start, and then transforming that into extraordinary action is what I like to call it. So that's the journey.
Wow. What a journey. Really, like it's very impressive, I would say, Corey. Um, but of course, like, it's like shifting from, let's call it a comfort zone to something by your own, right? So, leaving the family business after spending 15 years. And so what you would say the biggest challenge you faced when you started to venture on your own?
Biggest challenge was actually myself having to get out of my own way. And so many, especially brand new entrepreneurs, struggle with this. It's always that fear of failure, right? It's like, what's going to happen if I fail? And I guess you could say the silver lining for me in this situation was based on the trauma I had experienced in the 5 years before. I'm like, what could get worse than this?
Mhm.
Absolutely nothing. I had already been penniless before. I was cleared out with my divorce. I had already had to take risks. So I'm like, really nothing could get any worse. But that fear of failure is still always there. And it's a part of entrepreneurship that you just have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And one of the things I tell my clients all the time, and it's really kind of funny, but it's also true, is that entrepreneurs are quite literally professional failures. Right? We failed so many times that we eventually hit something and got good at something and created a lot of money from it. So you ultimately make a lot of money through failing. And that's the truth of it. So I would say that would probably have been, my biggest fear at the time. And I think that resonates for probably most entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, actually, you touched on something which was my next question. But before asking that, like, if quick note or remark from my side, I agree with you that usually entrepreneurs, and of course, because I'm in tech, so the fear of failure is one of the things that sometimes it let us, delay, taking actions, right?
Mhm.
So, and this is my question, like, how you can push that fear, and and when I was preparing, like, one of the things you talk about how you can make fun actually of it. So can you explain this a little bit more?
Sure. So ultimately, fear of failure is rooted in you not having confidence that the actions you're taking are going to result in what it is that you're looking to do. Right. So there's a confidence gap. And ultimately, your confidence is always your own responsibility. I think so many people out there, they kind of view it as, well, when other people validate that I'm good at what I do, then I'll be able to do this. And it doesn't work that way. You have to believe inside that you are willing and able to do what it is that you want to do. Story to kind of explain this is back when I was going through my phase when things didn't, feel in alignment and they didn't feel fulfilled. And I was working in corporate. I was working with a therapist. And at that time, she had said to me, she's like, is it possible that maybe, you need to change careers? And I thought to
Mm,
myself, like, oh, absolutely not. I was, groomed to do this. It's been over 15 years. My family's prepared me for it. And I give her so much credit and I thank her to this day, where she was the one that said, you know what? Like, have you ever considered coaching? The business coaching or personal coaching. I've never seen somebody navigate challenges the way that you do. And if you could teach people how to do it, that would be tremendous. And my gut reaction to her initially was, you are insane. Like, what can make you think that I could do this? And truth was, not even 2 weeks before she said this to me, I had watched that documentary on Tony Robbins on Netflix. I think it's called I Am Not Your Guru.
mhm.
And I remember watching it and thinking to myself, like, oh my God, his job looks so fun. Like, to be able to ask a few questions and in an instant transform somebody's life, that is so cool. But I would never be able to do that. right? Just instantly dismissed it because, I had that confidence gap. I didn't think that was there. So ultimately what ended up happening was after, my loss, when my partner had passed away, I decided to go and get educated on what's involved with being a coach. I explored different certifications. I read a lot of books. I found out the knowledge gap that was causing that confidence issue for me. And
Hmm.
what I discovered was basically everything I had been doing in a leadership for over 15 years at my family's business was coaching. I was coaching everybody in an organization to perform their highest potential. I already had the skills, but I had to be the one to believe it first. And once that happens, then you can actually take action on it. So that's the biggest thing. So if you want like an actionable takeaway, it's to get real with yourself. What am I not confident about? And then go out and either get the education or get the experience,
Yeah.
right? And then through doing, that's what's going to build your confidence. It's going to be less and less uncomfortable the more you do it. And then ultimately, it's going to end up being like second nature.
Yeah, and one thing, if you allow me to add, I think, people sometimes they feel they will be mocked by other people if they fail. Sometimes they think, oh, like what my parents would say, what my friends would say. And my advice is again, like you need to just go and do it and fail, right? So
Mhm.
like it happened to me at some stages in my career also as well. And everyone was thinking I'm crazy. But yeah, even if I failed, I say I tried. So anyway,
Right. Mhm.
you often mention the importance of recognizing and capitalizing on talents.
Mhm.
How does one truly identify their talents and turn them into profitable business? Because this is very important
Mhm.
for anyone who's listening or watching this, whether you are a tech, you are in business background, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So how to, tackle this, the talent.
Sure, the talent side of it. So I do a lot of coaching on this. And usually the framework that I use, it's very simple. And it really kind of narrows down to looking at three specific things. Number one is I like to joke, what did you love to do as a kid? In
Yeah.
general, because when we were children, right, that was before society put expectations on us on what we should be doing and what you are good at and what you are bad at, because that's what they believe, not what you believe. But what did you really like love to do as a kid that put you in flow? So for me, I love to, paint and draw. I was very creative, right? Hence why I ended up going to art school. But this is a great kind of key indicator for most people because a lot of folks I feel who are unfulfilled, they've come so far away from what it is that they're naturally inclined to enjoy doing that they then dismiss it. And that's not to say too, using myself as an example, I work in business, but I'm not making money from art, right? So being
Hmm.
creative doesn't have to come through in how I'm monetizing stuff. It is, however, coming through in how I market myself. Right. So there's other ways that I'm using that skill set in order to be able to bring it into my professional career and help others. It doesn't have to be the sole thing, but it's important that you have that somehow integrated into what you're doing and how you are being every single day. So that's first. So looking at what did you love to do as a kid? Then looking at your formal education. Like what were you taught? What and this is everything. This is from, high school, college, certifications. This is education that you paid for that has a value on it,
Hmm.
whether or not you use it in the industry you initially used it for. So again, circling back to myself as an example, I have that really expensive piece of paper that says I could draw well. As an asset in the business world, the reason why that's so important for me now is in being able to teach especially aspiring entrepreneurs, how to be creative, how to think outside of the box, creating campaigns that maybe other people haven't done or haven't tried, right? It's that
Hmm.
creative thinking that then I can bring into business scenarios to then be able to work with a zero budget and create a lot of revenue out of it just because I'm trying stuff that hasn't been done before. Last but not least, it's what are you passionate about? What kind of change do you want to see in the world? So many people completely ignore this, but if you're able to align what it is you're doing with the change that you want to see, whether it be a specific problem or a specific type of person you really feel, resonating to work with, one of the reasons I love working with aspiring entrepreneurs is I truly believe it's a value of mine that freedom is important, especially as a parent. As a working mom, I couldn't really hack it in corporate because of the time commitments and stuff. I couldn't get the flexibility. I believe everybody should have that kind of opportunity. So the
Right.
work that I do today is very much in alignment with, that element as well. So I would say looking at those 3 areas will give you a good idea of at least where to start brainstorming. Okay, well, what are some either jobs or some, business offerings that I can offer that tie these 3 areas together? And you'll be much closer to finding something that feels in alignment with what you feel you should be doing long term.
Yeah, this is very insightful. And I think it resonates with some other frameworks I would say that I myself saw before, which is like, you need to see what you are passionate about. And the first point is something that I did personally when I wanted to start this podcast, because I was trying to remember, what I was doing when I was like, as much as I can remember, of course, when I was like 5 or 6, right, at
Mhm,
that time. And I remember I was doing this tape recording, on the old days with the
mhm.
tape recorder. So I was recording my voice, listening to myself again,
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, and pretending to be like a news anchor, or maybe sometimes a documentary, commenter or something like
Mhm,
this. So, when I wanted to find something I'm passionate about, and now, trying to make it a business out of the
mhm,
podcast. I mean, so yeah, so I did the same approach, I would say, and really it works. So this is really cool, I would say, advice for aspirational entrepreneurs and anyone who's now maybe thinking, where can I start? So really good hints, I would say.
mhm,
Now, at the beginning, when you did the introduction, so you talked about, you little bit marketing, right? So,
mhm,
and you said like you act as a fractional CMO and
mhm,
CEO sometimes. So, and this topic I like to bring it a lot, because startups usually, the first thing they struggle is to get their first customers, right?
mhm.
So, and you mentioned something about low cost or no cost marketing. Can you please explain and share some tips on that also as well?
Sure. So low and no cost, my definition of this, that without needing to utilize websites, content, so social media content or paid ads, right? So a lot of stuff that terrifies brand new entrepreneurs to begin with. And really what this comes down to is the way that people used to generate business before the internet, which I'm very grateful for my family and having been in business for so long. Because when I first started with them, it was really right at the very beginning of social media. That was kind of a new thing.
Hmm.
So they were still doing a lot of the old school traditional tactics, which I still teach my clients today, which networking, like first and foremost, if you are a brand new business owner, that is the number one way that you should be getting the word out there. Because it's much, much easier to articulate the value that you have to offer somebody in a one on one conversation like this than it is to be able to translate that into a social media post that you're then competing with everybody else in your space online, as well as the algorithm to get it right,
Right.
which 9 times out of 10 doesn't happen if you're brand new because you're not exactly clear on who it is that you're working with yet. But it's much, much easier to invite somebody for a Zoom coffee or to, meet up at a networking, mixer and to have conversations with people because you could demonstrate that value very quickly and easily just in a couple of lines in an interaction. And people have that know, like, and trust factor right away. So that would be probably my best tip. And again, it's low and no cost because most of these events you don't necessarily have to pay to go unless it's like a
Right.
mastermind kind of thing. And then same thing even with content. The way that I usually walk my clients through doing the content play is you're not creating content, you're interacting with content, right? Which
Hmm.
again is free. So if you're going on and you're being really strategic about who it is that your target client is and who you want to be having conversations with, you're commenting on their posts. You're looking online for posts with, problem words that they have, different challenges that they have that you might be able to provide value in the comments, help them solve the problem. And then if they want to take it to another level, DM you to potentially, enroll in booking your service. So these are all different ways to kind of get around the content creation, loop. But at the same time,
Hmm.
it really just comes down to doing low and no cost. It's trying to think of, okay, what's available to me that's free, that's working for everybody else? And what are alternative ways I could use this same tool to get the same result?
Hmm. Now, I like to hear, the opinion of people who are expert more than me. I work as a consultant, technology background. At some stage, I shifted to sales. Now, I have a theory. Is it's actually what you mentioned is about not exactly the low cost or no cost approach, but I believe that companies or startups, let's say specifically, they need to become a magnet. So people come to them, and this could be by, as you said, going to networking event, going to marketing. And I believe outreach has a serious issues in the future. Now,
Mhm.
I might be wrong, you know. What I mean
So you
by
mean
outreach,
like the cold DM on LinkedIn where you're like,
cold,
oh,
not
okay, yep. No, I have a lot of thoughts on this. So I generate a lot of business through LinkedIn cold DM, and the way that you do this without it being intrusive is you have to be hyper targeted and who it is that you're
Mhm,
messaging. And you have to know that what it is you're offering is directly relevant to a problem that they have a high probability of having for whatever their role is,
mm,
right? Because when you're able to do that, then it's actually an act of service in reaching out to somebody because they probably are already looking for a solution. And it's much, much easier to have somebody come to them with the solution and be able to speak to it and articulate it in the language that they would use, that it is for them to actually have to go through the headache of Google searching and researching the person and following their content and this and that. So I think that there is a right way to be able to do it. I think that a lot of marketers out there nowadays are really kind of abusing it, the whole spray and pray, kind of like message all the different people and see who responds. But for folks that genuinely want to connect with other people and want to, provide value through what it is that they're doing, if they're doing it the right way, they're still able to provide value to that person, even if that person doesn't sign on with them as a client. It could be through
mhm.
making a connection or an introduction or providing a resource. There's so many different ways that you can help people. So yeah, I'm more on the front of I do not believe that direct outreach is a bad thing. I just think that there's bad direct outreach.
I'm not against it. At some stage, I
Yeah.
was doing it as well, but I think,
Mhm,
as you said, it's so misused, I would say.
mhm,
Because since I changed my role on LinkedIn, for example, you know, I receive on daily basis, I'm not joking, 100 plus DMs. They are trying to sell me different things. And
mhm.
the problem, what iterate me is not the message itself, because I can understand these guys what they are trying to do. The problem is because of the pressure they are under, they didn't even change, you know, stuff like my name, right? So the
Yeah.
other day, hey Mike, okay, who's Mike?
Yeah.
And another thing, which is funny enough, it's the cadence that they put. It's also like funny because someone wrote me, and I'm in the LinkedIn. It's like founder of the company, consultancy company that I own, and the guy, because I didn't reply him after 3 4 messages, say, "Are you the right guy to talk to?" And then it was so funny, and I had to reply in a funny way. I said, "If you just checked my title, you would know that I'm the right guy." So this is why maybe I'm a little bit biased on this,
Mhm,
because and this is what the next question is
mhm,
about, how it's important for founders, and especially in the startup space, to build a strong, let's call it, not only social media presence, but also kind of authority and self branding for
mhm.
themselves to allow fast growth in the future for their business.
Sure. I do think that social media brands in particular are much harder to do unless, number one, you have experience in digital marketing, right off the bat, and you have very specific, clear messaging and you know who your target audience is. If you're
Mm-hmm.
still a little wishy-washy and you're offering a lot of different things to a lot of different people, it's going to be much, much harder to build a brand on social specifically. But it doesn't mean that you can't still build a brand. Some ways that I love doing it, being on your show today is a great way to be able to build a brand and speak to what it is and be exposed to other people's audiences without necessarily having to be online. Same thing with I love doing public relations. So there's organizations like Haro, if you've ever heard of it. Sign up,
Mm-hmm.
it's an email newsletter, and journalists post articles they're looking to write that they're looking for expert guests to provide quotes for. I got vast majority of my press when I first started my business through hitting up Haro and just providing value. As long as you're providing value every step of the day, every step of the way in every interaction that you have. It really doesn't matter whether it's on social media or it's somewhere else. You're going to build that brand because that is the brand. You are the brand, and how you communicate what it is you do and how you connect with people. Brand is ultimately how people feel about your company, what you represent. Right. And that I find has always been the easiest and quickest way to do it.
Yeah, and I think this is the way how they can stand out in a crowded market, right?
Mhm.
Or is there anything else they can do? Any other advice you can give?
Standing out in a crowded market, I actually have a pretty unique take on this. So this is where doing that work that we talked about before with the, what did I love to do as a child and the, your education and
Mm.
stuff like that. That's where it's time to double down on how you're the outsider, right? So the fact that I'm a business coach, but I have an art background, I double down on that on every interaction I have because there's somebody out there who's looking for a business coach that isn't all about numbers and it is about visionary work. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
there's a flavor
Yeah.
for every taste, and that's how you stand out. So by being authentically you and unapologetically being like, this is what I have to offer, and this is why it's unique, and this is why it's of value to you, that I find is the quickest way to be able to stand out because ultimately, there's reasons that there's a Coke and a Pepsi, right? No matter
Mhm.
what, there's going to be, people are always going to prefer one flavor slightly over the other for whatever reason that is.
Right.
So competition, the only competition you really have to worry about is your competition with yourself. Worrying about other people out in the market, it really should be irrelevant if you're showing up as you.
I like it. I like it because I talk always also in every place where I can about being authentic,
Mhm.
and just as you said, like be better than yourself yesterday. Like this is what
Right.
I
Mhm.
always I'm big believer in this.
I love
Now
it. Mhm.
you've been featured like on, like you mentioned, TEDx and Girl Boss, Business Insider, and other outlets. How startups can leverage press mentions for their benefit?
We actually just talked about it. So I got all of those hitting up Haro, every
Mm.
single one of them. So it's just having and again, it's being concise about who you are, what you do, and how you help people, and who specifically it is you help. Being able to articulate that in a line or two to the journalist, and then providing value per whatever their question was in the article. That's, I found, has always been the easiest way to get
Mm.
featured.
Great. As we are close to the end, anything that you might uh, can tell the audience who are maybe now sitting struggling with their personal circumstances, maybe considering starting a business. What's the key message you want them to take from your journey?
I'd say the question that they need to ask themselves, especially if they're in a position that they're hemming and hawing, should I go for it? Should I do it? Or should I just stay safe? Is 5 years from now, would you regret more that you didn't and failed? Or would you regret having not tried at all? That right there should give you your answer on which direction you should go. And then from there, it's just a matter of deciding what it is you need to feel safe in order to make that kind of a leap. It's going to be different for everybody. I've known some people that are like, whatever, I've got no savings, but I'm just going to do it. For me
Hmm.
personally, I felt better doing it. I have, it's funny when I do finance podcasts and stuff, they're like, oh, good, you're doing what we recommend. I had the 6 months of emergency savings and I called it an emergency on my soul. And I used that to start my business. I was like, whatever, this is I need to get it done. But that's what worked for me. Other people,
Hmm.
they need to keep their full-time job to feel safe, or they need to have a large savings account, or they need to have a partner that's maybe able to cover it for them, like they were able to cover their partner's college, right? They
Yeah.
have everybody has a certain level of safety and security that they need. So just make sure that you feel safe and secure before you make the leap, but never, ever, ever regret not having made it.
100%. Now, my final famous question: is there anything you wished I asked you, and how you would answer it?
Oh man, that's a great question. Let's keep it light and airy. I'm surprised you didn't ask me. Tell our audience one thing that they would find surprising about you.
Go ahead.
All right. I used to play electric cello in a punk band.
Oh, nice.
Very random, but yeah.
Ah, yeah, that's very nice. Oh, and where they can find about, I should have asked this before. where they can find about you, Corey, like,
Sure.
your
Best place to
website.
best place to find me is on my website, CorrieLo.com, CorrieLo.com. And that's got all of the different ways that you can work with me. I also do have a podcast myself. It's called Corrie Lo Radio. You can check that out.
Nice.
And every social media platform. So we're talking LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, now on Threads, at I am Corrie Lo. You can find me.
Oh, okay, great. So I will make sure that I will put all the links in the episode description. Well, thank you very much, Corey, for the time today. I really appreciate all the insights you gave, and you shared your personal story as well. I really appreciate that. And as usual, this is what I repeat at the end of each show. For people who are listening or watching this, if you have any question or feedback, you can reach out to me. I'm available again on all the social media, like mainly LinkedIn, where I'm active the most. You can send me also an email. You can find my email in the podcast description. And if you would like to be a guest also as well, same as Corey was a guest today with me, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. We can discuss, the topic. We can discuss the time, how we're going to do it. Don't worry about it. And because it's the CTO show, I'm repeating recently at the end or sometime at the beginning, although it's called the CTO show, but what I'm trying to do is a blending between technology, startup, entrepreneurship. And by the way, you can be from a different like industry, but somehow you can relate to startups and entrepreneurship. That we have some episodes where we had, for example, someone talks about burnout. We had someone who talked about mental health and so on. So the door is open for everyone who would like to be on the show. And again, thank you very much for all the feedbacks I'm receiving recently. You're liking it. Thank you very much. And hope to catch up with you soon in another episode. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.